Welcome to the Nurses Out Loud radio show. We will be starting in a few moments, so please stay tuned. If you are watching on social media, please give us a like, share, and follow. And for those of you who would like some more info, please go check us out at nursesoutloud.com. Thank you.
4 years ago this week, a brave Pfizer manufacturing quality auditor decided that silence was no longer an option. Today, I'm honored to sit down with Melissa McAtee, the Pfizer whistleblower who exposed internal emails revealing fetal cell line use, questions about graphene oxide, and major changes to quality processes after Operation Warp Speed. We're going to talk about what she saw, what drove her to speak out, and how life has changed since the day she told the truth. Welcome to the show, Melissa.
Hi, Jody. Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm excited. It's been a minute since we have connected.
We've been so busy doing our own things, right?
Right. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. It's been 4 years. I know. I just celebrated my anniversary a few weeks ago. What emotions come up for you when you realize that it's been 4 years since you've come forward?
Sadness, only because, nothing's been done. I feel like I was never, I'm sure you can relate to this, feel like I was never really given the chance to present my evidence or my story to people who could make real changes. I did present my story to Kennedy, who was probably the biggest name that in the movement that could help. But then what happened just right before this 4-year anniversary, he was buddy with Albert Bourla in front of the world at the White House. So that was devastating. I don't think I've been that sad since I realized people still didn't care when the story came out and we're still getting the COVID vaccine from Pfizer. So it was just, I've been sad.
Yeah.
But not depressed.
Not depressed. No, I hear you. When I saw him standing up there and Trump was right next to him with the Pfizer CEO, I was just staring at Kennedy like, what's he thinking? What was going through his mind being up there on stage with that man? I
mean, I know he has to mind his P's and Q's. I know he's on a leash, but at the same time, like what a slap to your entire Maha movement, that all the supporters, all the people who helped get Trump elected, because let's be real here, when Kennedy endorsed Trump, a lot of people were like, okay, if I vote for Trump and Trump gets in, then that's like getting Kennedy in. And that's how I felt about it anyways. And Kennedy really cared when I told him my story. He asked a lot of questions and he continued to contact me throughout a year after whistleblowing, wanting more elaboration on things, wanting more description of my documents and things like that. And then he announced he was running for his campaign, or announced his campaign, and didn't hear from him. The method of contact we'd been using was no longer, a valid form of communication. And I just thought, he's going to get in there like a bull in a china shop and fix everything. But if he's working on stuff, it's behind the scenes and it's quietly. I was thankful for the Tylenol announcement. That's something.
Yeah.
So I was thankful for that, but.
Right. Well, hey, listen, you at least were in contact with him. I mean, he knows your story. He knows the documents that you have, and he knows a lot. I mean, I have the book right up behind me, The Real Anthony Fauci, which I used in my whistleblowing lawsuit. I mean, so much of his references and stuff, really guided me to do what I did as well. I had found out about Kennedy in 2020 and started following him. And, 2021, I felt like I had enough, evidence, if you will, to blow the whistle, but, the listeners know my story. I want to take them back though to the moment that, like, take us back to the moment, what was happening inside the plant that made you decide enough was enough? What was it that you were seeing?
Well, the first thing that made me distrust the product and media was people were saying that the vaccines had luciferase in them, which when I Googled it, it says it caused like it was a glowing component used in scientific research and things like that. And I thought, that's crazy. I work here, me and my husband agreed, I work here. We observe the process. If things are weird, then we'll make a decision, Pfizer didn't mandate it to its employees right away. So I had plenty of time. And sure enough, the first day I was on the COVID vaccine, first day it was put out, I walked down there and it's glowing on the table. And I was like, what? And I raised concerns. I emailed Albert Bourla directly, which he just forwarded me to, communications. And they were like, no luciferase is used in the final product of the vaccine. And they said, however, it was used in testing. And I was like, okay. So then what is causing this luminescent effect? What is making this kind of illuminated glow? I don't want to say it glows because people interpret like when it's in the dark, you can like see in the dark. No, it's more so like when the lights are on, it changes color. It color shifts. Like it goes from being this clear to slight yellow color to a glowy, kind of like a dull glow stick of periwinkle blue. And I asked them why it did that. And they said, we're not aware of that. What are you talking about? And I was like, so hold on, you're in charge of communication, answering the world's questions, and you don't even know what this product looks like?
Yeah.
And right there, my flags went up. Didn't respond to that email of them saying they have no idea. Oh, and they asked if I had pictures, which I felt was kind of a trap. Even though I was in quality, I was allowed to take pictures. It felt kind of like a trap. And then I just started to pay more attention. I realized that I had access to the database, Pfizer's internal database, which a former employee, coworker of mine was a tech person, went to college for tech and computer stuff. And he says the only way that it was possible I was able to access that database was they were in the process of switching things over to a new database. And I just happened to look at it at a time where anybody could see.
Yeah.
And that's when I found, I believe it was like August 19th, 2021. I just started Googling conspiracy theory, or not Googling, searching conspiracy theory terms on their database and was just reading what would pop up. And that's when I came across the emails. And as I was reading them, it just felt like a gut punch. It almost felt like I was being pumped, like on a reality TV show. Because I'm like, why are they talking like this? First off, it's very unprofessional. It was not what I would expect given my communication with the company. It's always been usually pretty professional, minus a time or two. But that finding the database between the glowing, that's what perked me up to pay attention and think, something's not right, because the media is really trying to knock this as a conspiracy theory. Then hearing Dr. Jane Ruby talk about graphene oxide, that also put me out, because I did find in the database a report on graphene oxide that it was found in the product, and they were wanting more samples to test, and it was labeled all over the media or all over the fact checkers as false, not true. And so I was like, but if we have the report on our database, it's real,
Right.
and stuff like that. And they were framing it up as not real at all.
Yeah. Okay. So tell the listeners a little bit about what your job was, how long you were there, et cetera.
Yeah. So I was hired in 2012 as a pharmaceutical assistant, which was essentially a pack line person, somebody who set the room up, transferred the room over to the next product, would offload the product, package the product. We're kind of the last eyes on the product before it goes out to the customer, kind of thing. And I did that for about 4 to 5 years. And then I got a promotion to manufacturing quality auditor. Now, keep in mind, when I was originally hired, it was Hospira. And Pfizer bought it in 2015. And
Okay.
so from 2015 to 2017, they were in this transfer over of the company, of it kind of going from Hospira to Pfizer. So it wasn't really solidified till 2017. And in 2017 of April, I believe, is when I was promoted to manufacturing quality auditor. It was a position I'd always wanted because you were like the cool kids of the plant. You got to walk the entire plant, go everywhere, do everything. You knew everyone's job. You got, I love kind of like finding things. Like I have a really good eye for things, which is part of the reason I was promoted, was because I had no errors in my job, like at all. And
Mm-hmm.
that's rare out there. I was done right first time kind of person. I had a very big eye for detail, and quality was like, hey, why don't you use your eye for detail in our department and quit giving us more work in the packaging department? So I went
Right.
and did that. And at first, it was super easy job. Kind of the previous way of inspection was a little bit more easy. You go through this thing called visual inspection training. We called it VIT, and it's a very intensive training for. It used to be shorter, but as I worked in the department, it got more and more strenuous. And I think that was to kind of weed out the weak, essentially, because it was hard. It may sound silly to people, but you're looking at hundreds and hundreds of good units to find 15, 20 bad ones, and you have to find them all to pass and correctly categorize them and things like that. And you have to stay in a specific position the whole time, which for some older people, or even just people who couldn't handle the repetitive motions or the specific posture, couldn't do the job because it hurt their
Mm-hmm.
backs too much, and things like that. And I don't mean to gloat, but I'm just being honest. I was very good at my job. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and I would get done before other people. I was just good at it. And I loved my job. I absolutely loved it. I don't think I ever would have left. I would have stayed in quality, and I would have retired there. And I loved most of my coworkers. Everybody's got beef with somebody somewhere, but I loved
Right.
it, and I was very passionate, and I was good at it. And I made sure the job was done right. All before
And
COVID, of course.
right. And you were young. I mean, you're still young. How old were you when you started working there in 2014?
19.
19. So you blew the whistle in 2021. So what were you, 25, 26?
2021. Yeah. But I was 27, I think. Because I'm
27.
no, let me think. Because I'm 33 now. No, I would have been almost 30. Yeah, I was 29. I just turned 33. So something to keep in mind is, it's funny. My whistleblower date is almost the anniversary of me getting hired out there. And I
Mm,
had just turned 20, actually. So I was doing training at 19, but was officially like on the line started at 20. Um, and yeah, a lot of people think there's no way that this is real because she's so young. I'm like, as much as people like to picture the people dealing with your medicine or these prestigious Harvard or college grads that are handling your medicine, that's the people in the labs. That's the managers. That's the higher ups. That is not quality. That is not inspection. That is not packaging. That is not warehouse. That is not compounding. Okay. All of Pfizer does all of those jobs training in house. And they
mm,
expect it to take about 6 months to train you for your job. So you don't need the background of the college education. They train you how they want you trained. And that's essentially what happened. As a low level pack person, the training takes 2 months, maybe to fully understand it before you're comfortable with the paperwork and knowing what you're doing. Um, but for the most part, yeah, if you came from college there, it was because of the money and the benefits. We had people with art degrees out there, or
mhm.
people with zoology degrees or different things like that, who were starting at the low level, but they would work their way up to supervisor, manager, quality professional, things like that. So yeah, you did not have to have this prestigious science degree to work there, and you still don't. The jobs are
Right.
posted. You could go look at the requirements. Mhm.
And for where Pfizer is in your town, I mean, this was essentially like the best job that you could get, basically.
People would drive an hour to work
Yep.
there, one way. Yes.
Right. Right. So you exposing all of this was not something that you took lightly, and we're going to get into that a little bit more, but let's talk a little bit about the fetal cell line emails that you found.
Yes, that was one of the first things one of the first big things I found. I will say I was checking the database for a couple months before I knew how to really use it. I wasn't really finding any results Googling fetal cells or anything, or not Googling, searching in the database those phrases. But then when I saw an interview on Flyover Conservatives where, I forget her name, but she said they use codes, they use the scientific codes. And she said them all, and I wrote them down. And then I went to work the next day and I searched those codes, and that was the key, man. It unlocked all this stuff I'd never seen before, searching the same thing, just not the scientific code. And it was HEK293T. And the first results were emails, PDFs they had saved to the database, probably as a referral for future questions that they wouldn't have to go through the back and forth of communications again. They'd just be able to look it up and say, this is our answer. This is what we're supposed to do in this situation. And my grandma at the time was a devout Catholic, and she was getting vaccinated because the Pope said it was okay. And I thought that it was crazy that one of the first emails I read was that they wanted to not let the information on the fetal cell lines out there because the Pope said it was okay with the verbiage that they had already submitted. So they don't want to change any of their verbiage. It's already been approved. Let's just leave it alone. Don't answer anybody who's not a healthcare professional. Only answer people in the scientific community because they'll understand.
Yeah.
That's basically how it was all phrased. And they talked about, basically they wanted to be able to deny religious exemptions. Because if they say that no aborted fetal cells were used in the manufacturing, the development, whatever, my claim is not that they're in the manufacturing, but that they use them in the development, and they didn't even want you to know that. They only wanted to tell the educated doctors and healthcare providers and scientific people. They didn't want to tell the media. They didn't want to tell an average person inquiring the company. They just wanted to keep all of that out there. And it all goes to informed consent, right?
Right.
People think I whistle blew to let you know that aborted fetal cell lines are being used in the development of vaccines. That's well known. You can Google that. There's nothing there. The problem was the extent the company was going to make sure you didn't know that information so that you couldn't get a religious exemption, so that you had no reason to not take it.
That's right. Exactly. I know a lot of hospital systems, they contracted with outside agencies to, talk about your religious exemption. It wasn't a piece of paper that you just clicked the box and said religious exemption and sign your name anymore. That's what we do now, right? We do that. We've done that with the flu shot and every other shot that's out there. You click a box, religious exemption, or whatever, whether it be religious, philosophical, or medical.
Whatever.
Yes, exactly. And then you hand in that piece of paper. But with COVID, that was another beast entirely. Like I said, companies contracted with outside companies, and then they had Zoom meetings. People had to get attorneys to sit in on this just so that you could, exercise your right to a religious exemption. They were questioning people's faith, which nobody has a right to do that.
COVID changed everything.
It
used to be you could just say it's against my religion, and that was the end of it. Now companies when they hear religious exemption, some of them require a religious figure to sign off, including a doctor still, for a religious exemption. Makes no sense. So that your pastor or whoever you have sign it is basically saying our entire congregation believes in not vaccinating and none of them are vaccinated. No pastor is going to sign that. Nobody's going to sign that. No doctor is going to sign off on a religious waiver because they disagree with you. And
Right.
my job right now is I work for a company called Frontline Health Advocates, and we supply federally protected medical waivers under the ADA. And you would not believe the stories I hear every day of people who religious exemptions are legal in their state, but they still get denied. Why is that?
Mm-hmm. Right. Why is that? Why the big push? We know, I think a lot of us that are listening to this, for me, my eye-opening moment was when I heard somebody say, follow the money. And I did that. And I started realizing that, yes, money was at the root of all of this. Money, power, influence, control was all at the basis of this. And it's just, it's crazy. It's crazy to me how many people knew something stirring in their soul, like you and I had, right? We had something in our soul telling us that something's not right. We, saw with our own eyes. We heard people's plight, right, of not being able to work and all of these things. And yet so very few people came forward. And, in many ways, I was like you, Melissa. I was a young nurse. I had only been a nurse for 6 years when I, risked my career. I mean, I was working for the government. I was making 25% hazard pay duty. $20,000 a year they were paying for my student loans. I was set to go on and get my psych nurse practitioner. All of these things, just like you had a job that you loved. You felt fulfilled in your calling to work there. So to risk it all was a huge leap of faith. It really was. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. But let's go move on to these graphene oxide emails. You came across emails about graphene oxide. I mean, what did those say? What is graphene oxide? What stood out to you?
Yeah, so I saw a video. Someone sent it to me. I'm going to say it. My boss at Pfizer sent it to me, this video. And he said, do you think this is real? Do you think this is true? And it was Dr. Jane Ruby on Stu Peters. Keep in mind, was not familiar with these people. I was so out of the conspiracy loop. I actually had just fathomed that 9/11 was an inside job like a year before this. Okay, so like keep in mind, I was like super behind on everything. And I watched it and she said, it's basically nanoreceptors that can self-assemble within the body that form this like wireless network within you, or that it was at the very least a toxic substance when taken in large doses. Now we have graphene oxide and other things, but the difference is it's not injected into us, right? And so
what do you mean when you're saying injected, like into the bloodstream?
Correct. Bypassing your body's natural defense systems. So like when we're ingesting it, when it's in our food or whatever else they claim it's in, it goes through our system that was God designed to filter things like that out and, help us essentially against being poisoned and things like that. So, but when it bypasses all of those and goes directly into your muscle, to your bloodstream, to your brain, who knows, she said it could kill you in certain doses. And so I took that very serious. I researched it a little. And then the second set of emails I found were those graphene oxide emails, where basically a woman messaged the executive CEO of communications or science research. And she said, hey, we're getting a lot of outside inquiries regarding graphene oxide being in our final product. Is this answer okay to provide to them? And her answer was, graphene oxide is not listed as an ingredient in the final product of the vaccine. However, we cannot guarantee that minute amounts of substances have, however, we cannot guarantee that minute amounts of substances have made it into there because we use a global network of suppliers and third party to ensure a product. So basically what they're saying, we can't guarantee it ain't in there because we don't put it as an ingredient, but we get stuff from other places. Just a fun fact, we were getting our ingredients for the vaccine from China or from an Asian company that has Chinese-like letters, okay? I can't prove it's China, though. Pfizer did have a research and development lab in Wuhan at the time. Just a fun fact. So we're getting this product from third-party global suppliers, and they can't guarantee it's not in there because we're not sprinkling it in there, and stuff like that, but we can't guarantee it's not in there. That's like a peanut butter company telling you we can't guarantee there wasn't a bug mashed up in your peanut butter. That's honest. That's being truthful. But the executive comes back and says, just say the first part that it's not an ingredient. If we can specifically omit that second half, we should. Go ahead and take it out.
Wow. The
Right? That's not
deception.
informed consent, is it?
No,
And
no.
it was this big conspiracy theory. People will still comment on my post saying graphene oxide was debunked. I'm like, I don't know what to
Okay.
tell you.
Right.
I can
Okay.
only tell you that Pfizer has the
Mhm.
report from Spain that they found graphene oxide. Then I can tell you that the internal Pfizer communications expert on the scientific research says it could be in there, but we can't guarantee it, but we're not going to tell you that.
Right. That's not informed consent. And it's interesting because in the beginning of the show, you said uh, that they said, okay, well, just talk about these topics only to the scientists and to the doctors because they'll know. And it's funny. No, they don't know. No, they don't. I mean, I have, Dr. Jennifer Smith, who blew the whistle at HHS in Hawaii, right? Or Department of Hawaii, the State Department there, sorry. And she, is forthcoming. She's like, oh my gosh, they don't teach us this stuff. I had no idea so many things. And it was only through her independent research. Same with me. Same with all nurses out there listening right now. Unless your child was injured by a vaccine, okay? Or you knew someone close to you that made you say, let me investigate this. Let me look into this. You would have no idea that there was no inert placebo controlled trials for any of the vaccines, right? We would have no idea those things because
Well,
our training was basically, here's the immunization schedule. This is when they get it. They're safe and effective. They've saved millions of lives. And if there's an injury that would happen, you're going to see it right in front of your face, and you're going to administer Benadryl,
they're
steroids,
basically going to
whatever.
drop dead on the table. That's his
Yeah,
adverse reaction to them. That's what it takes.
right.
And Jody, let me ask you this. Were you ever trained as a nurse to inspect the solution of a product before administering it?
Yes, yes. We that is something that we should look at, like color clarity. Yeah,
Are you
yes.
looking for anything like particulate matter?
I mean, we're looking to make sure that it looks clear, we know we mix antibiotics all the time, when we do mix it in saline or whatever the medium is, we do have to make sure that, it is clear, that it's not cloudy,
Mhm.
like those types of things.
Yes.
But again,
And that
that's
was part of
also
my job as
practice.
well.
Pardon me?
Yes. That was part of my job as well, making sure of that degradation, because we wouldn't just inspect it while it was active on the line, heading out to the customer. We would pull samples and inspect them year after year after year to make sure they held up through that expiration date that was on the box, make sure they didn't degrade or get
Mm-hmm.
worse or dirty, things like that. But did you use filtered needles to administer product?
Yes, if it calls for it, right? That we would
Okay.
there are filter and unfiltered needles. There's some types of
Okay, good.
antibiotics and stuff that you need to put through a certain IV tubing. But again, Melissa, this is nurse practice dependent, right? These are the things we should be doing, but are we always? Like, I recently just had a situation at my work where a kid was given Tylenol, a suppository, and the parents looked in the garbage can and saw that it was expired. But when the nurse went back and looked at the box wasn't expired, but somebody added the product to the box. You see what I'm saying? To consolidate
Yeah,
it.
for
So those
for
little
practice. Yeah.
things. Right. It is
And
practice.
expiring isn't necessarily the end of the world, depending what it is, because
Right.
Pfizer would have us peel expired product and put new labels on it. So the
Oh
way
my
I see it
goodness.
is, does it actually matter? I don't know. I know we did that several times on the pack lines for rework and things like that. But you're the first nurse that I've ever talked to that said yes to those things. When I've asked other people,
Really?
do you inspect
That's
it? They
sad.
say no. They say we make sure it's not broken, or make sure, like you said, the color. But to me, nobody has ever checked for particulate matter, which is the main problem of being in the manufacturing. Now, when people say, there's heavy metals in the vaccines, and they're like, well, we tested the aluminum salts are safe, and this amount of aluminum is safe, and this and that. Well, I'm here to tell you that when your medicine's getting made, when it's going through the sterile environment and getting filled, it is going through an all steel metal machine that is man adjusted and man transferred over. So it's not some perfect environment in the sense of like it's never touched. If it is a little too tight, a little too loose, metal grinds against metal, and metal is going into that product. Okay. That is part of my job, to find visible with the eye. Keep in mind, we had to do eye tests. We had to make sure we could see the smallest we could see, but you can see it with the naked eye. Imagine the stuff you can't see with the naked eye, right? Or you have to find 8 vials with metal in them before the batch fails, and it has to be re-inspected, which if I caught it in quality, that means it was missed through the 2-part initial inspection, which is, it can be machine can inspect product, which is terrible. You think it would be better, but it's worse. And then where man sits there and the vials go by and they watch it, and people are just as infallible. They fall asleep, they turn to talk, they don't pay attention, the machine keeps going. And if I catch it, that means it was missed by possibly 2 steps, okay? And then if we only find 7, it's still okay to go out to you, the customer. And that's just for the class B defects. That's not even the criticals. The criticals are things that affect the safety, sterility of the vaccine, because their argument, what they told us, is that filtered needles are used for the products. So if there is stuff in there, it's getting filtered out, it's fine. And they told us that, I lost my train of thought. So they told us that it gets filtered out, or it's so big that it's going to notice and they're not going to administer it. But if nurses aren't all checking, because like I said, you're the first one I talked to that said, yes, well, good for you for doing your job well. But apparently not everybody knows that. And so it was just shocking to me when I found out, like, I would see the metal in the product. I found boogers in product, guys. I have found hairs. I have found anything and everything you can think of. These are not, like I said, the Harvard prestigious, squeaky clean people that are making your medicine. It's the people who got fired from Walmart. It's the people who need the money, need the benefits, who didn't go to college. Okay. And I think Pfizer relies on that, because they know that if they treat you really, really good, you're going to second guess treating them accountable.
Well, exactly. If you pop up a plant in the middle of, a rural area, and people are saying, oh, wait, I can go work at Pfizer, I can get a pension, I can make top dollar. Of course, you're not going to want to expose them doing wrong. Right. I mean, when you talked about, getting the ingredients and stuff from China, right, or Asian places or whatever, I don't think a lot of people realize that. They think that these products, since they're, for human use, that Pfizer controls all of that. And they don't. I mean, I remember during COVID getting boxes of PPE that had Chinese lettering on them. And I'm like, you're kidding me? I'm supposed to put this mask. Yeah, I'm supposed to put this mask over my face, which I know doesn't work, and it's from China. Like, yeah, not happening. You know what? I think this is a good spot for us to take a break. Guys, I think what Melissa is exposing here is really important, and it really ties directly into the ethics course that I have created, because there are certain things that we are bound to uphold. And I am going to be starting a workshop. I do have an independent track that you can just take the courses on your own, get 10 CEUs after completion. But here soon, within the next couple weeks, I will be releasing some dates to do a workshop where we can actually discuss this as a group. So head over to righteousrn.com and check out the ethics course. And also, we love to hear from you guys. We love it. We want you to comment, like, share, send us emails. You can send it to nursesoutloud@gmail.com. You can go to nursesoutloud.com and submit your question through there. And also follow our Substack, where we are releasing all of our shows daily, sending it out in an email to you guys. So you can just click on the topic if it's of interest to you, and reach out that way. The most important thing is to stay connected. And you may even be listening to us right now on americaoutloud.news. I highly encourage you to go check out the shop there at americaoutloud.shop and get exclusive discounts only available to our America Out Loud Talk Radio listeners. So we will be right back after the break.
If you are a nurse that is fed up with the sick care model, I have a solution for you. My name is Melissa Schreibfetter, and I am the owner and founder of the Functional Nurse Academy. FNA is the most comprehensive functional medicine training program on the market, specifically tailored to nurses. It is self-paced and equips LPNs, RNs, and nurse practitioners to practice functional medicine, address the root causes of dysfunction, and start their independent functional medicine practices. At FNA, you will learn how to order labs, functional health reports, create customized wellness plans, package and price your services, and even how to market your brand effectively. Graduates earn 90 nursing CEUs, and then they qualify for multiple board certification titles. They also will have access to our exclusive tools, such as our Functional Nurse Toolkit, our social media and marketing kit. And I don't want to just train you and send you on your way. So you also will get access to me each month via the Functional Nurse Academy monthly mentorship program, where you will be able to attend a live class with me each month. So say goodbye to sick care and start your dream career as a functional medicine nurse. Enroll today at functionalnurseacademy.com.
All right, guys, welcome back. Thank you for joining me. I am your host, Nurse Jody O'Malley, and I am joined today by my fellow whistleblower, Melissa McAtee, who exposed the Pfizer issues that we had talked about in the beginning of the show today. So, I think, Melissa, for both of us, we came forward around the same time. For me, it was about exposing specific dangers to public health inside a federal system that has lost its moral compass. But for you, what was the ultimate point, like the line in the sand that pushed you to go public?
I was reaching out to multiple news sources, local news sources, CNN, Fox, things like that, and I wasn't getting any responses. And I just took that as a sign, maybe I'm crazy. Like I can't give specifics, but higher level people in Pfizer at my plant go over my documents, and they all told me, you need to do something with this. They're like, this is wrong. And so I gave up. I was very depressed. I was on a mental health leave of absence from Pfizer at the time, rightfully so. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know what to do. And I got an email notification. I was sitting and I was like, somebody had told me to reach out to Project Veritas. I tried. I didn't really get anywhere with that. And so I had just given up, and I got a notification of an email, which I never clicked my email notifications because at the time there was no reason to. And I clicked it, and it said Pfizer to start administering the Pfizer vaccine to children as young as 6 months. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I cannot do this. And I think, Jody, it was the same day your interview aired. And you said, I fear God, not man. Nobody can do anything to me but God. And, and that was kind of the push I needed, because I believe that too. God had a very obvious hand throughout my entire career at Pfizer, including the whistleblowing. And so I was like, I need to try harder. And so I reached out to the Project Veritas people again. And that time I got a response within 5 minutes, and that's where it took off. And I had never heard of Project Veritas. In fact, one of my bosses sent me your interview, and that's how I watched it. So,
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, it got around. I mean, for me, it came at a time where the entire country was being coerced. Like, okay, you got a month. You got 1 month left before, you're going to lose your job if you don't take this experimental biologic, right? Medical experiment, basically. You got 1 month left. And I felt like you. Was I crazy? How am I the only one speaking out on these absurdities that we are doing and seeing? And nobody is questioning, correlating, safety signals on the vaccine because nobody was asking if they were vaccinated. And the world was told that they were safe and effective. So nobody, like very few people said, hey, wait a second. I just got the shot. Why is this happening to me? Right? Because most people were brainwashed. And so, yeah, and I too, I think I had just heard about Project Veritas that summer. I saw Ivory Hecker's story come out, and a few others. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I can trust these people. And my dad, he knew James O'Keefe. I had never heard of him before. I was like you. I was like living my best life, working the job, traveling, having fun. So it wasn't easy, so you reached out to James. He brought your show or brought your story to air. Did you feel like there was more that you wanted them to discuss and share? Did it, I mean, because I know for me, I was just like, Lord, I'm doing what you're asking me to do. I'm just going to trust in you to have this unfold the way that it unfolds. But there was a lot of my story that was left out. I honestly, the day of my interview with him, we were delayed about 5 hours because they just had realized the magnitude of what I was going to expose. So, they're a small company. I don't blame them or anything. I just have to have faith that God is going to bring this to wherever, he wants. But yeah, like, did you feel that there was more that you wanted to discuss on your interview?
Well, before I answer that, I want to make a statement that James has continued. It's been 4 years. James has continued to check in on me for not only my mental health, but to make sure, I am, still happy with what I did essentially. And he's still been there. Nobody else would be doing that. Okay.
Right.
I'm going to say that right now, that he has continued to support me and help me. Even when we've had disagreements on things in the past, he has continued to care, and I care about him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also important to say that I never met James or spoke to James until the day I sat down in that chair to do the interview.
Yep. Same.
I spoke with a journalist who was supposed to sit down with me in person and go over all my evidence, but they ran into a flight issue and it couldn't happen. So I never got to show all of my evidence and go over it in detail with any of the journalists. Okay. So I send them 150 pages and communicating email. And so I feel there was a lot more I would have loved to talk about, and a lot more I would have wanted to make sure was the purpose of me whistleblowing. Because I feel like when people watch the 2-minute synopsis, the short, they think I'm whistleblowing that aborted fetal cells are used in the development, which is not what I was doing. But I would have loved more time to talk, and I would have loved to go over more things. The only thing I have ever consistently been asked not to speak about from other people I've interviewed with, is the glowing vials. Now, I think it's just because it sounds crazy and they don't want the viewers to click off, right? And that's always my assumption, because that's what I was told, is that, it's just too much. And even though I have photos, I have proof of this, they don't want to scare away the audience from my true story based off something that they might think is just a comic book story. So yes, there is a lot more I would have liked to go over. There's a lot more I would have loved to talk about, but I don't think it was due to nefarious or malicious reasons. I think it
No.
was simply due to time. I didn't get the
Mhm.
chance to go over all of the things I had with James or even the journalists. And at the time, religious exemptions were being denied. Pfizer was under the microscope and they wanted to focus on the gut punch part, which
Mhm.
they believed at the time was they're intentionally withholding informed consent to deny religious exemptions. And this is how the CEOs and the executives talk about it behind closed doors.
Right. Right. I think, Melissa, what just popped up in my head as you were talking was we need to get, uh, they call it, is it a prescription? Anyway, basically, I think we need to tie our stories together and pitch it to some news media, to do a movie on it. It's something that's actually been laid on my heart. I started. I have a tagline. I bought books. I have 4 books on how to write your, a script, and I don't, because there was a lot that I had, a lot of evidence that I had to show how everything happened in the hospital, the tests, the
Right.
inflated numbers. There's so much out there. I actually have 2 lawsuits still against me. But anyway, that I really do think that is our next step,
We need to
because
hit up Children's Health Defense, see if they want to help us. Because I've interviewed with Brian Hooker, who helped do Protocol 7 and those Children's Health Defense movies, making awareness about the vaccines. And one of my favorite interviews. But I've been offered to do documentaries, and it's
Mhm.
crazy how the enemy works, right? Because every time I was offered a big thing like that, I had just had my children and I
Oh.
couldn't go anywhere and couldn't leave.
Mhm.
And so I don't think that's a coincidence. I truly think the enemy is like, perfect, we're going to do it when she can't leave her newborn. I was a
Mhm.
breastfeeding mom, new mom. Like I couldn't leave my baby, and I didn't want to take my baby on a plane to go across the country to do something that could have been viewed as dangerous at the time. And I've had people reach out to try to help me with books, but they want paid before I even really know who they are. And so I see it as a scam. And so I
Mhm.
never really take those offers up. And I think the biggest platforms I've been on have been Candace Owens, Dr. Drew, and Children's Health Defense. Those are probably the biggest ones. I've actually talked to Joe Rogan's best friend. I have talked to General Michael Flynn. I have talked to close advisors of Donald Trump, and I get nowhere. Never hear, nothing ever happens.
Nothing ever happens. Yeah. I know that you did have some big interviews. Charlie Kirk and Alex Jones were the only ones that interviewed me. Candace and Tucker were scheduled to do it, and they canceled the next day. And listen, girl, like, we know what we did. We know that it was the truth. And if it wasn't for our faith in God, that we were called to do this, I mean, we would be an absolute mess. And, as far as James is concerned, yeah, he's my buddy. Like, I love that man. I support him in what he does. I, I look back at the unfolding of how the story went, and how your story went, and know that there's so much more to it. But again, it's giving that up to God, and saying, okay, Father, your will be done. Your
Right, right.
will,
I
not
don't
my
chase
own.
people. I don't chase people. I say it once, and if it blossoms, it blossoms. And if it doesn't, then I take that as God's will. I try not to get upset over things like that. It's just more so I feel, how do I say, dissatisfied with myself in the sense of maybe there was more I could have done. But I
Mm-hmm.
became a mom quickly after whistleblowing. My son was born in December 2022. I whistleblew in October 2021.
Yeah.
You and me met for the first time in person shortly after my whistleblowing in Vegas at a Vegas event.
Mm-hmm.
Met some very interesting people there. And then
Yes.
we went to the Miami event. with James's book opening, which to me, that and then the Charlie Kirk event at AmFest, those are like so ingrained into my soul that those are probably the happiest times I've ever had. And that's what I miss, is feeling like I'm fighting the bad guy with other heroes. And when the story goes dry, when it's been a year since I've even talked about it, it just feels like everybody's forgotten. And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of Goliaths out there that everybody is trying to fight, and everybody deserves their own time, their own season to feel heard and to take their shot at Goliath. But I just, like, for example, with the Trump Kennedy being buddy with Albert Bourla.
Yeah. Ooh, girl, I had to pray on that. Yeah, I had to pray on that real hard. There's actually a Substack that Dr. James Lyons Weiler just put out. And I briefly went through it. I'll post that in the show description as well. But it's basically saying what that meant and how, you know.
Is it the 10D chess thing?
No, it's basically, you know, like for us, we're like, you got the devil next to you. Why are you dancing with the devil? Right. That's, you know, immediately what our community, you know, who's been fighting this for so long saw. But again, there's also that saying, keep your enemies closer. Right. And so
you think of the world, even after COVID, even after all this evidence is now no longer conspiracy theory and is fact, people still can't accept it. They're getting their flus, their boosters, they're vaccinating their kids, they're taking Depo-Provera. Talk about that lawsuit, Pfizer. And they're still doing it. I try to view Kennedy, because I do not know Donald Trump. I know about as much about the man as everyone else that sees him on the TV. Kennedy, I have spoken closely with, and his VP pick, Nicole Shanahan. They care deeply about this. Okay. Kennedy has seen the mothers who have had their children injured after vaccines. He has a heart for this. Right. I fully believe he does. So I think Kennedy's method, if I'm going to give anybody benefit of the doubt, it's Kennedy, and it's because he's feeding a baby deer.
100%. Yes, 100%. Like, he can't come in like a bull in a china shop, because this, you know, Aaron Siri came out with a book called Vaccines, Amen, because it is literally a religion for so many people. That's what they believe in. They feel that the vaccines are the savior to everything. And you have to really chip away a little bit at that belief system. You know, like for you and I, you know, we're in industries where we told everybody they're safe and effective, right? Get vaccinated. Everybody needs to do it. It's the best thing you could do for your child, till all of a sudden, wait a second, I don't know. And I'm not going to promote it, you know, if that's the case.
You know, I feel like maybe part of the reason Trump doesn't want to stick his finger in my story, because I know he's aware of it at the very least. Very least he's aware of it, is because he was father of the Operation Warp Speed and vaccine, right? And so therefore, if he acknowledges my story, it's like he's in the wrong. But here's the thing. Operation Warp Speed was not so that you could bypass safety and quality standpoints or protocols. It was so that we could get the masks to people, the safety preparation, the PPE, and it was so that we could get the, we had to build rooms. We had to add on to the plan. We had to quickly make things that were specific for this product, such as the dry ice facilities, because that's what they got shipped out in. That's what Operation Warp Speed was for. It was not to bypass quality and safety protocols, which did happen in my plant. Pfizer promised to uphold GMP, good manufacturing practices, to uphold their safety and quality standard. They did not. This is on Pfizer. This is not on Donald Trump. He was tricked. The world was tricked. The stark difference night and day between pre-Operation Warp Speed and post was that before, Pfizer really did care about quality. You know, we would have to deal with people, individuals, not necessarily the company, who wanted their bonus and wanted the product out, and they didn't care what you found wrong with it. They wanted it out. But Pfizer as a company genuinely usually cared. But when Operation Warp Speed happened, it didn't matter what I said. It didn't matter the discrepancies I found in the documentation. It didn't matter that people were breaking Pfizer law, okay? Stuff that people were fired for in the past, people were told to do now, like falsifying documents.
Right.
That is what we are up against. I'm not pointing the finger saying Donald Trump, this is his fault. I'm not saying this is it. Pfizer deceived the world and put out a crap product and many other crap products because they used it as a blanket across all their products, not just the COVID vaccine. Sorry, I just wanted to get that out there.
Well, hey, listen, they did the same with healthcare, right? Because of that, and because of the PrEP Act, standards of care were completely lowered. We were able to do anything we basically wanted, unless it was willful misconduct, right? And other than that, doctors not going in the room and assessing, all of these things.
Following protocol instead of common sense.
Yeah, new protocols, not evidence-based protocols. And
right,
that
new
is
protocols, not the standard. That's right.
Exactly. Melissa, your courage really continues to ripple through the world. And I am just so honored to be friends with you. There's not many warriors in this fight, but you certainly are. 4 years later, your decision to tell the truth, it still matters. And maybe more now than ever. For those out there that are wrestling with their own conscience inside these systems, what do you say to them?
I say, whistleblowing is not for the weak. You got to be willing to lose friends, lose personal time, break your reality. Because my thing was, I did not believe in conspiracy theories. I worked at Pfizer, guys. I was not an anti-vaxxer. I was not someone who was against medicine. I was not someone who knew anything was wrong with it. It took my best friend's son getting vaccine injured while simultaneously going through this at Pfizer that I started to say something is not right. And if you have that whisper in the back of your mind and in your heart, that's God, that's the Holy Spirit that is nudging you to do something. And if it is God's will, it will happen. You just have to make the steps, right? Noah was commanded to build the ark. He had to build the ark. He didn't just stand there and God make the ark and somehow that was credited to Noah, right? You have to take that step. Now here's the thing. I do get a lot of people wanting to do something, but it's usually for not crimes. People will message me and they'll say, I was fired because I didn't get the vaccine. I'm like, okay, true. A lot of people experience that, but this is what you need to do. That's not a whistleblower thing. Or someone will message me and say, my boss has harassed me sexually. And I'm like, okay, but that's not a whistleblower thing. That's a crime. You need to report that to, HR. You need to do the right thing and do that. But that's not a crime. When you are higher up in a company, especially in a trusted process such as testing, development, distribution, communications, things like that, and things, I'm still alive, guys, okay, by the protection of God alone. But people automatically assume, oh, you'll be killed, or oh, this or that. Yeah, I lost friends, but they weren't really my friends, right? I lost so-called friends. Family members turned against me. I was made fun of, ridiculed. People who work at Pfizer still think I'm crazy. It's not like everyone out there had the same experience as me. Not everyone who works at Pfizer is the devil. A lot of people are anti-vaxxers at Pfizer because they see how the hot dogs are made, okay? And once you see that, you change your mind. The common phrase that was said a lot when I was new out there was, if I ever go to the hospital, I hope I'm unconscious. Because you don't want to deal with it. And that's just the reality. Something I like to give a comparison to is, if you go to a new restaurant, who do you think knows the food better? The waitress that brings it to you, feeds it to you, tells you what it's in it, what it's about, what it tastes like, or the cook who prepared it from scratch, right? I worked in the kitchen. I saw how your food is being made. The nurses, the doctors can tell you whatever they were told when they read the menu, and they know that they may have even tasted it themselves and they thought it was delicious. But I'm here to tell you, there's stuff that's in there that maybe you don't want to eat.
That's right.
You
There
know?
you go. And you know what? And that's it. Guys, follow Melissa on Instagram or X at Melissa McAtee 92. And if you want to support her mission to restore integrity in medicine, you can donate directly to Give Send Go / Pfizer Whistleblower. Melissa is
Actually, it's not
oh,
Pfizer Whistleblower anymore.
it's not.
It's givesendgo.com / Melissa McAtee. My
Okay.
old campaign, I hadn't gotten any donations, so they shut that down, and I don't have access to that, so I had to make a
Okay.
new one.
Yeah. Okay. So Melissa McAtee, that's Melissa MCATEE. Okay, guys. She is, what did you say? You're 33 years old. You're my son's age with
I have
2
two boys,
babies.
2 babies. I got laid off from my job that was the breadwinning income, and now I'm struggling. I'm sure a lot of people are struggling. That's not to belittle anybody else's. It's just my greatest fear is having sacrificed my good career, my good pay, my good benefits, and having to go back and find another job that pays well. And that is not going to be something. I want to raise my sons in my home, and I want to homeschool them and raise them. And so that's my mission. So.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, God bless you, Melissa. Thank you so much, everyone. Until next time, be safe, be well, and God bless.
Shining light into darkness, thank you for tuning in to Nurses Out Loud.